Tiffany's voice cut through the dining room like a knife. Her perfectly manicured finger pointed at me across the table where I'd served Sunday dinner for 30 years. The same table where Raymond and I had fed our son Darnell. The same table where we'd celebrated birthdays, promotions, and Thanksgivings. My son, my only child, sat right there next to his wife. He didn't flinch, didn't defend me. Instead, he smiled and nodded like she'd just said something reasonable. "Mom, Tiffany's right," Darnell said, cutting into his pot roast like we were discussing the weather. "The house was never really yours anyway. Dad left everything to me in the will. You've had 2 weeks to grieve. That's enough time." I looked at my grandchildren, Amara, 7, and Isaiah, 9. They stared down at their plates, too scared to look at me. Isaiah's bottom lip trembled. My chest felt hollow. Raymond had been gone 14 days. 14 days since I'd held his hand in that hospital room. 14 days since my world ended, and now my son was throwing me out of the home we'd built together. I set down my fork, didn't say a word, just stood up from the table and walked to the bedroom I'd shared with Raymond for 43 years. Before we continue, please tell us where you're watching from so we know how far our stories reach, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. Let me take you back to the beginning so you understand how I got here. My name is Evelyn Williams. I'm 72 years old. Raymond and I got married in 1982, right after I graduated from nursing school. He was working construction then, strong as an ox with dreams bigger than the sky. We saved every penny, worked double shifts, ate beans and rice most nights while we scraped together money for a down payment. In 1987, we bought this house. A beautiful 3-bedroom in a good neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. It wasn't much. Needed new pipes, new roof, new everything. But it was ours. Raymond fixed it up with his own 2 hands while I worked night shifts at the hospital. We raised Darnell here. Taught him to ride his bike in that driveway. Celebrated every Christmas in that living room. I cooked Sunday dinners every week without fail. Collard greens, macaroni and cheese, fried chicken, cornbread. The whole neighborhood could smell it. Raymond and I were a team. Whatever money we made went into the family pot. We never separated things as his or mine. Everything was ours. When Raymond started his own construction company in 1995, I helped him with the books. When I got promoted to head nurse, he threw me the biggest party. We put Darnell through college. Both of us worked overtime to make sure he graduated debt-free. He met Tiffany his senior year. She was pretty, ambitious, studying business. She smiled a lot back then. They got married in 2012. Had Amara 2 years later, Isaiah 2 years after that. We were thrilled to be grandparents. I'd take those babies every weekend, let Darnell and Tiffany have date nights. I'd braid Amara's hair and teach Isaiah how to make my famous peach cobbler. But things started changing around 2020. Tiffany got a promotion at her marketing firm, started making real money. Suddenly, she had opinions about everything. Our house was outdated. Our furniture was embarrassing. She'd make little comments at family gatherings about how Raymond and I were stuck in the past. Darnell started changing too. He'd always been a good son, respectful, loving, present. But after Tiffany's promotion, he started talking differently. Started saying things like building generational wealth and securing assets. Started looking at our house like it was a piece of property instead of a home. Raymond noticed it too. "That boy's forgetting where he came from," he'd say, shaking his head. But we loved our son. We made excuses. Marriage is hard. Work stress is real. Young people have different values. We figured he'd come back around. Then Raymond got sick. Last November, he started feeling tired all the time. By December, he couldn't get out of bed. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. The doctor said he had maybe 6 months. He lasted 4. During those 4 months, Darnell visited maybe 5 times. Always had an excuse. Work was busy. The kids had activities. Tiffany wasn't feeling well. Meanwhile, I was at that hospital every single day. My church sisters brought me food. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, drove me back and forth when I was too exhausted to drive myself. Raymond died on a Tuesday evening in early October. I was holding his hand. He looked at me and said, "Evie, you're the strongest woman I know. Don't let nobody take that from you." Those were his last words. The funeral was beautiful. Our pastor, Reverend Jackson, gave a powerful eulogy. The church was packed. Raymond knew everybody. After the service, people came back to the house, brought food, shared stories, cried with me. Darnell and Tiffany stayed for maybe an hour, then left because the kids needed to get to bed. The next week was a blur. I was drowning in grief, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Everything reminded me of Raymond, his coffee cup, his chair, his smell still on his pillow. Then, exactly 1 week after the funeral, Darnell showed up at the house with a folder full of papers. "Mom, we need to talk about Dad's will," he said. I was still in my bathrobe, hadn't showered in 3 days. "Can this wait, baby? I'm not ready." "It can't wait. There are legal deadlines." He sat me down at the kitchen table, that same table where I'd taught him to tie his shoes, helped him with homework, celebrated his graduation. "Dad left everything to me," Darnell said, sliding papers across the table. "The house, the savings, his life insurance, everything. It's all in my name now." I stared at the papers. My vision was blurry from crying, but I could see Raymond's signature. Could see Darnell's name listed as sole beneficiary. "But why?" I whispered. "We always said everything was ours." Dad wanted to make sure the assets were protected. Estate taxes, legal stuff. "Don't worry, Mom. You can stay here as long as you need to. We're family." As long as I need to. The words felt wrong, but I was too tired to argue, too broken to fight. That was 10 days ago. Now here I was, packing my clothes into suitcases while my son and his wife ate dinner downstairs. I could hear Tiffany's laugh echoing through the house, my house, the house Raymond and I built. I packed slowly, my nursing uniforms, even though I'd retired 5 years ago, the dress I wore to our wedding, photos of Raymond and me, young, in love, full of hope. I left behind the expensive dishes Tiffany wanted, the furniture she'd been eyeing, the TV Darnell had been asking about. When I came downstairs with my 2 suitcases, they were still at the table. Tiffany was scrolling on her phone. Darnell was helping Isaiah with homework. "Where will you go?" Darnell asked, not looking up. "I'll figure it out," I said. Amara ran to me, wrapped her small arms around my waist. "Grandma, don't go. Please don't go." Tiffany pulled her away. "Amara, sit down and finish your dinner." Isaiah's eyes filled with tears, but he stayed silent. I walked out the front door, loaded my suitcases into my old Honda, the car Raymond bought me for our 30th anniversary, drove away from the house we'd turned from a broken-down shell into a home. I spent that night at a cheap motel on Route 66, cried until I had no tears left, prayed for understanding, asked God why my son had turned into a stranger. The next morning I woke up with strange clarity. Raymond's last words echoed in my head. "Don't let nobody take that from you." I got dressed, put on my best church outfit, a navy blue dress with pearl earrings Raymond bought me for our 40th anniversary, did my makeup, fixed my hair. Then I drove to First National Bank downtown. The bank manager, Mr. Chen, his name was Mr. Harrison, greeted me with a sad smile. He'd known Raymond for years. "Mrs. Williams, I'm so sorry for your loss. Raymond was a good man." "Thank you, Mr. Harrison. I need to access our accounts." He nodded, typed on his computer. Then his expression changed. His eyebrows went up. "Mrs. Williams, I'm going to need you to verify some information with me." "Of course." He pulled up several screens, kept typing, kept checking things. The longer he worked, the more confused he looked. Finally, he turned the computer screen toward me. "Mrs. Williams, Are you aware of these accounts? I looked at the screen, saw numbers I didn't understand, account names I'd never heard of. I don't understand. What am I looking at? Mr. Harrison adjusted his glasses. Mrs. Williams, your husband maintained several private accounts. They're all under your name. Sole ownership. Your son isn't listed anywhere on these. My heart started pounding. How much money are we talking about? He pointed at the screen. In total, across all accounts, stocks and bonds, you have approximately $3.2 million. The room started spinning. That's impossible. Raymond was a construction worker. We lived simply. Mrs. Williams, your husband was also a very smart investor. He started buying stocks in the early 1990s. Property, too. He owned 3 rental properties on the south side. A small commercial building in Hyde Park. He had life insurance policies I don't think you knew about. And he made sure everything was in your name only. I couldn't breathe. But the will! Darnell showed me the will. Raymond left everything to him. Mr. Harrison's face hardened. May I see this will? I didn't have it with me, but I described what Darnell had shown me. Mr. Harrison made a phone call, then another. Then he asked me to wait while he contacted the estate attorney who'd handled Raymond's affairs. 30 minutes later, a woman in a sharp suit arrived at the bank. Her name was Attorney Simmons. Mrs. Williams, she said, sitting across from me. I was Raymond's attorney for 15 years. I can tell you with absolute certainty that Raymond made you the sole beneficiary of his estate. Everything goes to you. Your son was supposed to receive a small trust fund, about $50,000, to be given to him when he turned 40. That's it. The air left my lungs. Then what did Darnell show me? Attorney Simmons' jaw tightened. Without seeing the document, I can't say for certain. But if your son told you that Raymond left everything to him, then either he misunderstood something or... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. My son had lied to me. Or worse, he'd forged documents. He'd used my grief, my vulnerability, my trust to steal my home. What do I do? I whispered. Attorney Simmons pulled out her business card. First, you don't tell anyone about this conversation. Not yet. Second, you give me 24 hours to gather all the documentation. Third, you meet me at my office tomorrow morning at 9. We're going to fix this. I left that bank a different woman than when I walked in. The grief was still there. Raymond was still gone, and nothing could change that. But underneath the grief was something else now. Anger. Pure, righteous anger. My son had bet on me being weak. Had bet on me being too broken by grief to fight back. Had bet on me being the kind of mother who'd take abuse rather than stand up for herself. He'd bet wrong. I drove back to that motel, spent the evening calling people. First, I called Mrs. Patterson, my neighbor, told her I needed a favor. Could she drive by the house and see what Darnell and Tiffany were doing? She called me back an hour later. Girl, you won't believe this. There's a moving truck in the driveway. They're bringing in new furniture. Expensive stuff, too. Tiffany's out there directing traffic like she's the Queen of England. I called Reverend Jackson next. Told him part of what was happening. Not everything, not yet, but enough. Sister Evelyn, you know the church is here for you. Whatever you need. I need prayers, Reverend. And I need you to keep this quiet for now. Can you do that? You got it. But Evelyn? Don't you let them steal your joy. Raymond wouldn't want that. That night, I barely slept. Kept thinking about everything. About how Darnell used to climb into bed with us during thunderstorms. How Raymond would read him stories. How we'd sacrificed everything to give him a better life. How had my sweet boy turned into this? The next morning, I arrived at Attorney Simmons' office at 8:30. She was already there, surrounded by files and documents. Mrs. Williams, sit down. We have a lot to discuss. She laid it all out. Raymond had been planning for my future for decades. Every investment, every property, every account, all designed to make sure I'd be taken care of if something happened to him. He'd structured everything to avoid estate taxes and protect the assets from anyone who might try to take advantage of me. "Your husband knew you had a generous heart," Attorney Simmons said. "He told me once that you'd give away your last dollar to someone in need. He wanted to make sure you'd always be secure, no matter what." Tears rolled down my face. Even in death, Raymond was protecting me. "Now, about your son," Attorney Simmons continued. "The document he showed you was not your husband's legal will. I have the original right here. Would you like to file a police report for fraud?" I thought about Amara and Isaiah. Thought about how their father was about to face consequences for his greed. "Not yet," I said. "I want to try something first." Attorney Simmons raised an eyebrow. "What did you have in mind?" I told her my plan. She smiled, a sharp, dangerous smile. "Mrs. Williams, I like the way you think." That afternoon, I called Darnell. "Mom, where are you? You need to come get the rest of your stuff. We're renovating your old bedroom." My old bedroom. The room I'd shared with his father for 43 years. "Actually, baby, I need to talk to you about something. Can you and Tiffany meet me at the house tomorrow? Say around 2 o'clock? "We're busy tomorrow. Just come get your stuff and—" "It's about Raymond's estate. There's been a mistake with the paperwork. A big one. You're going to want to hear this." Silence on the other end. Then, "What kind of mistake?" "The kind we need to discuss in person. See you tomorrow at 2. I hung up before he could argue. The next day, I arrived at my house at exactly 2 o'clock. Darnell's BMW was in the driveway. Through the window, I could see new furniture in the living room, expensive leather couches, a massive flat-screen TV, crystal lamps. They'd wasted no time spending what they thought was their money. I rang the doorbell. My own doorbell. Tiffany answered, annoyed. "Evelyn, why are you ringing the bell?" "Just come in." "It's not my house anymore, remember? You made that very clear." I walked in. The place looked different already. They'd taken down our family photos, replaced them with modern art. Raymond's favorite chair, the one he'd sat in every evening to read the newspaper, was gone. "Where's Raymond's chair?" I asked. "That old thing? We donated it," Tiffany said, examining her nails. "Darnell, your mother's here." Darnell came down the stairs, impatient. "Mom, what's this about a mistake? We've got appointments this afternoon." "Oh, I won't take up too much of your time," I said sweetly. "I just thought you should know that I went to the bank the other day." Darnell's face changed. Just slightly. A flicker of something. Worry? Fear? "And?" Tiffany asked. "And I met with Raymond's attorney. The real one. Attorney Simmons." "She showed me the actual will." The color drained from Darnell's face. "Turns out Raymond left everything to me. Not you. Every account, every property, every investment. All in my name. Has been for years." Tiffany laughed. "That's ridiculous. Darnell showed us the will. It's all legal." "Was it legal, Darnell?" I looked at my son. "Because Attorney Simmons says the document you showed me isn't Raymond's real will. She's very curious where you got it from." Darnell's hands started shaking. "Mom, There must be some confusion. Dad told me—" "Dad told you nothing. You lied to me. Used my grief to steal from me, kicked me out of my own home." "We didn't steal anything," Tiffany shouted. "This house should be ours. You're old. What do you need it for? We have children to raise, a future to build." "You were just going to waste everything." There it was, the truth, finally naked and ugly. "Well," I said calmly, "here's what's going to happen next. You have exactly 72 hours to remove every single item you brought into this house. Every piece of furniture, every decoration, everything. You're going to return it all or donate it or burn it for all I care, but it's not staying in my home." "Your home?" Darnell finally found his voice. "Mom, please. We can work this out. I made a mistake. I was just trying to protect the family assets. Tiffany thought, "Don't you dare blame your wife. You're a grown man. You made this choice." I looked at both of them. 72 hours. If you're not out by then, Attorney Simmons will file fraud charges. Do you understand me? Tiffany's face twisted with rage. You can't do this. We'll fight you. You'll what? A new voice came from behind me. I turned to see Attorney Simmons walking through the front door, followed by 2 police officers. I invited some friends, I said to Darnell and Tiffany, just to make sure we're all on the same page. Attorney Simmons stepped forward, handed Darnell a folder. Mr. Williams, these are eviction notices. You have 72 hours to vacate the premises. If you fail to comply, you'll be forcibly removed and charged with trespassing. If we find any evidence that you forged your father's will, you'll also face felony fraud charges. One of the officers spoke up. We're here to keep the peace while Mrs. Williams collects her belongings. I walked past my stunned son and his wife, went upstairs to the bedroom. Everything we'd owned, our clothes, our photos, our memories, had been shoved into garbage bags and dumped in the corner. They'd already started turning the room into a home office. I gathered Raymond's things carefully. His favorite jacket, his reading glasses, the love letters he'd written me over the years. I found his watch in a drawer, the one I'd saved up to buy him for his 50th birthday. When I came back downstairs, Tiffany was crying. This isn't fair. We have children. Where are we supposed to go? You have a home of your own, don't you? I asked. The nice condo downtown that you bought 3 years ago? Her face went red. Oh, you thought I didn't know about that? Raymond and I might have lived simply, but we weren't stupid. We knew you and Darnell had your own place. Knew you were planning to rent out this house once you got me out of the way. How much were you going to charge? $3,000 a month? 4? Darnell couldn't look at me. Get out of my house, I said quietly, and stay away from me. Both of you. Mom, please. Darnell reached for me. I stepped back. I don't know you. My son died the moment you threw me out. The man standing in front of me is a stranger. I walked out with what I came for, leaving them standing in the wreckage of their greed. But this story isn't over. Not even close. Because 3 days later, when I returned to take back my home, I discovered something that changed everything again. Something that made everything I'd been through look like a warm-up act. And this time, Darnell wasn't the only one who was going to pay. 3 days later, I pulled up to my house with Mrs. Patterson riding shotgun. She'd insisted on coming with me. Said she didn't trust Darnell and Tiffany to leave peacefully. Girl, I've been watching that house like a hawk, Mrs. Patterson said as we parked. They've had people coming and going all hours, moving trucks, storage pods, the whole 9 yards. The front door was unlocked. I pushed it open slowly, not sure what I'd find. The house was empty. Not just empty of their new furniture, empty of everything. The kitchen table Raymond and I had eaten at for 30 years? Gone. The couch we'd saved up 6 months to buy? Gone. The TV, the lamps, the rugs, all gone. They took everything, I whispered, walking through rooms that echoed with each footstep. Mrs. Patterson was furious. Oh, hell no. This is theft, Evelyn. You need to call the police right now. But I barely heard her, because as I walked upstairs, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The door to Amara's bedroom was open. Inside, garbage bags were piled everywhere. I opened one and found children's clothes, dirty, wrinkled, some with stains. Another bag had broken toys. A third had school papers, report cards, drawings. They'd thrown away their children's things like trash. I picked up one of Amara's drawings. It showed a stick figure girl with tears on her face, standing far away from 2 tall figures holding hands. At the top, in a child's handwriting, I miss Grandma. My hands started shaking. Then I found Isaiah's notebook. It was a journal his teacher had assigned for school. I shouldn't have read it, but something told me I needed to. The entries made me sick. Mom yelled at me today for asking about Grandma. She said Grandma doesn't love us anymore. But I know that's not true. Dad said we can't call Grandma. He took my phone away when I tried. Amara cried all night. Mom told her to shut up. I held her hand until she fell asleep. I'm scared. Mom and Dad fight all the time now. It's about money. Dad says we're going to lose everything. Mom threw a glass at the wall. We had cereal for dinner again. 3rd time this week. Dad says we have to save money. The entries went on. Page after page of a 9-year-old boy watching his world fall apart. The last entry was dated 2 days ago. Dad said we're moving to California. Tomorrow. He said we can't tell anyone. Not even our teachers. I don't want to go. I want to stay with Grandma. California. They were running. I pulled out my phone and called Attorney Simmons immediately. They took my grandchildren, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. They're planning to leave the state. Are you sure? I found my grandson's journal. They're leaving tomorrow. No, wait, that was 2 days ago. They might already be gone. Attorney Simmons was quiet for a moment. Mrs. Williams, I need you to stay calm. I'm going to make some calls. Do not leave that house. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She arrived in 15, this time with a different police officer, Detective Brooks, a tall black woman with sharp eyes and no-nonsense attitude. Mrs. Williams, I need to see that journal, Detective Brooks said. I handed it over, watched her face darken as she read. This is evidence of child neglect, possibly abuse. Mrs. Williams, do you have any reason to believe your grandchildren are in danger? Yes, I said without hesitation. My son is desperate. He thought he'd inherit millions. Instead, he's got nothing and he's running from fraud charges. He's unstable, and Tiffany... I thought about all those entries about her screaming, throwing things. She's worse. Detective Brooks made a call, then another. Within an hour, my house was full of police officers, social workers, and FBI agents. FBI? I asked Attorney Simmons. Why FBI? Because they crossed state lines with minors while fleeing potential felony charges. That makes it kidnapping. Kidnapping? My grandbabies. They tracked Darnell's phone to a motel in Nevada. The FBI contacted local police. By midnight, officers knocked on their motel room door. Detective Brooks called me at 2 a.m. We found them. The children are safe. They're being placed with Child Protective Services temporarily until we sort this out. I want them, I said. I want my grandchildren with me. We'll need to do a home study, background checks, the usual process. But Mrs. Williams, given what we found in that journal and the condition those children were in when we picked them up, I don't think you'll have any problem getting emergency custody. She was right. The judge granted me emergency custody 3 days later. The social worker who brought Amara and Isaiah to my house, well, to Mrs. Patterson's house, since mine was still empty, cried when she told me what she'd seen. Those babies were wearing dirty clothes, hadn't had a proper meal in days. The motel room was filthy. They were terrified, she said. Mrs. Williams, you saved them. When I saw my grandchildren, my heart broke and healed at the same time. Isaiah ran into my arms, sobbing. Grandma, I knew you'd come. I knew you wouldn't leave us. Amara held on to me so tight I could barely breathe. Daddy said you didn't want us anymore, but I didn't believe him. Never, I whispered, kissing their heads. I will always want you. Always. The next 2 weeks were chaos. Child services investigations, police reports, court hearings. Attorney Simmons was magnificent, filed for full custody, filed restraining orders against Darnell and Tiffany, and started criminal proceedings for fraud, theft, and child endangerment. The church rallied around us. Reverend Jackson organized a furniture drive. Within days, my house was filled again, not with fancy leather couches and crystal lamps, but with comfortable, lived-in furniture donated by church members who loved us. Mrs. Patterson and her husband helped me paint the kids' bedrooms. The youth ministry showed up with boxes of toys and books. "This is what family looks like," Reverend Jackson said, watching church members carry in a dining table. "Not blood. Love." My neighbor 3 doors down, Mr. Washington, was a retired teacher. He offered to tutor Isaiah and Amara to help them catch up after missing school. The church secretary, Sister Gloria, had raised 5 kids of her own. She stopped by every morning to help me with the children's routines, showed me how to handle school drop-offs and pickups, reminded me which forms needed signing. "Girl, you raised one child 40 years ago," she laughed. "Things have changed. These kids got iPads and Google Classroom and all kinds of mess we never dealt with. Even people I barely knew helped. The lady who owned the soul food restaurant on Madison Street started sending over meals twice a week. Growing children need to eat," she'd say, refusing payment. The barber on the corner gave Isaiah free haircuts. The woman who ran the bookstore dropped off new books for Amara every Friday. I wasn't alone. I'd never been alone. The court date for custody was set for early November. Attorney Simmons prepared me thoroughly. "Darnell and Tiffany are going to fight this," she warned. "They'll say you're too old, that you can't handle children, that you turned them against their parents. Be ready." I was ready. The courtroom was packed. On one side sat my church family, Reverend Jackson, Mrs. Patterson, Sister Gloria, and at least 20 others who'd taken off work to support me. On the other side sat Darnell and Tiffany with their lawyer, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit. Judge Martinez was a stern Latina woman in her 50s. She'd read all the files, seen all the evidence. Her face gave nothing away. Darnell's lawyer went first. "Your Honor, my clients made mistakes. They admit that, but they love their children and deserve a chance to make things right. Mrs. Williams is 72 years old. She can't possibly provide the level of care these children need. She's elderly, living on a fixed income." "Actually," Attorney Simmons interrupted, standing up, "Mrs. Williams is a retired registered nurse who spent 40 years caring for people. She's in excellent health, and her fixed income includes a very comfortable pension, Social Security, and significant assets left to her by her late husband. Money is not an issue." The judge looked interested. "Continue." Attorney Simmons presented everything. The journal entries, photos of the children when they were found, dirty, underfed, scared. Testimony from their teachers about missed school days and concerning behavior. A psychologist's evaluation showing both children had symptoms of trauma and neglect. Then she called me to the stand. "Mrs. Williams, why do you want custody of your grandchildren?" I looked at Amara and Isaiah sitting in the gallery with a social worker. They were wearing new clothes I'd bought them, their hair freshly done, their faces finely relaxed. "Because they're my babies," I said simply. "Because their daddy forgot how to be a father, and I can't let them suffer for his mistakes. Because I promised my husband I'd be strong, and protecting these children is the strongest thing I can do." "Are you prepared for the challenges? The early mornings, the homework battles, the teenage years ahead?" I smiled. "Your Honor, I raised one child while working night shifts as a nurse. I can handle 2 while retired." The courtroom chuckled. Darnell's lawyer cross-examined me. Tried to make me look feeble, outdated, unable to handle modern parenting. But I'd been a nurse for 40 years. I'd handled life and death situations. A lawyer with a fancy suit didn't scare me. "Mrs. Williams, isn't it true you're bitter toward my clients? That you're using these children as revenge?" I looked him dead in the eye. "Sir, I spent 14 days watching my husband die while my son visited maybe 5 times. I spent 2 weeks grieving in a house I'd lived in for 38 years before being thrown out like garbage. I discovered my only child lied to me, stole from me, and neglected his own children. Bitter? Yes, I'm bitter. But these babies didn't make me bitter. Their parents did. And not 1 ounce of my feelings toward Darnell and Tiffany changes how much I love Amara and Isaiah. Then the judge called the children. They were old enough to have a say, she explained. Isaiah went first. The courtroom was silent as a 9-year-old boy sat in the witness chair, his feet barely touching the floor. Isaiah, do you want to live with your grandmother? Judge Martinez asked gently. Yes, ma'am. Why? Isaiah's voice was small but clear. Because Grandma makes me feel safe. She cooks real food. She helps me with homework. She doesn't yell or throw things. And she lets me talk about Grandpa without getting mad. Do you love your parents? Isaiah thought about it. I don't know anymore. I want to. But they hurt Grandma. They hurt us. Love isn't supposed to hurt like that, right? Judge Martinez's professional mask slipped for just a second. No, honey, it's not. Amara was next. 7 years old, wearing the pink dress Mrs. Patterson had bought her, her hair in 2 perfect braids I'd spent an hour on that morning. Miss Amara, where do you want to live? With Grandma, Amara said without hesitation. I want to stay with Grandma forever and ever. What about your mommy and daddy? Amara's bottom lip trembled. Mommy says mean things. Daddy doesn't stop her. They told us Grandma didn't love us anymore, but that was a lie. Grandma came and found us. Grandma saved us. I was crying. Half the courtroom was crying. Even Attorney Simmons wiped her eyes. Judge Martinez called a recess. We waited in the hall for 90 minutes while she reviewed everything in her chambers. When we returned, the judge looked directly at Darnell and Tiffany. I've been a family court judge for 23 years. I've seen a lot of ugly things. But what you two did to your own mother, to your own children, ranks among the worst. You exploited a widow's grief. You stole her home. You neglected your children while spending money you didn't have on things you didn't need. And when you were caught, you ran. Took 2 children across state lines without telling anyone. Do you have anything to say for yourselves? Darnell stood up. Your Honor, I made terrible mistakes. I was drowning in debt, and I panicked. I thought if I could just get control of my dad's estate, I could fix everything. I never meant for any of this to happen. I love my mother. I love my kids. You have a strange way of showing love, Mr. Williams. Tiffany stood up too. Your Honor, we were desperate. We have a mortgage, car payments, credit cards. We were about to lose everything. We just wanted a stable future for our children. Judge Martinez's expression was ice. You wanted a stable future for your children? While feeding them cereal for dinner and screaming at them for missing their grandmother? While packing up and fleeing in the night like criminals? That's your idea of stability? She looked down at her papers. I'm granting full custody of both minor children to Mrs. Evelyn Williams. Mr. and Mrs. Williams, you will be allowed supervised visitation 1 Saturday per month, pending completion of parenting classes and family counseling. If you miss a single class or counseling session, visitation will be revoked. Darnell started crying. Please, Your Honor, don't take my children. You took yourself away from your children the moment you chose greed over love. Maybe someday you'll understand that. Court adjourned. The gavel came down. Isaiah and Amara ran to me. I held them both, and we cried together. Sad tears mixed with relief, grief mixed with joy. But we weren't done yet. 2 weeks later, the criminal trial began. Darnell was charged with fraud and theft. The prosecutor was a young black woman named Jasmine, who reminded me of myself at that age. Sharp, determined, refusing to back down. The trial lasted 3 days. The evidence was overwhelming. Darnell had forged Raymond's will using a template he'd found online. He'd stolen furniture, electronics, and family heirlooms worth over $50,000. He'd emptied joint accounts that had my name on them, thinking I'd never check. The jury found him guilty on all counts. At sentencing, the judge gave him 2 years probation, 500 hours of community service, and ordered him to pay back every cent he'd stolen, plus damages. Tiffany got probation for her role in the neglect charges. I sat in the back of the courtroom and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, no sadness, just emptiness where my love for my son used to be. After the sentencing, Darnell tried to approach me in the hallway. 2 deputies stepped between us. "Mom, please," he said. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I looked at him, really looked at him, saw the man he'd become, saw the choices etched into his face. "I forgive you," I said quietly. "Not for you. For me. Because I won't let your poison live in my heart. But forgiveness doesn't mean trust. It doesn't mean relationship. You're a stranger to me now. You made yourself a stranger. Can we ever fix this? Can we ever be family again?" I thought about Raymond, thought about the life we'd built, thought about Amara and Isaiah at home with Mrs. Patterson, probably doing homework at the kitchen table. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe someday, but not today, not tomorrow, maybe not ever. That's up to you now. You want to be a father? Prove it. You want to be a son? Earn it. But understand this. I don't need you anymore. I have everything I need." I walked away. Left him standing there with his regrets. Life moved forward. Isaiah joined the youth choir at church. Amara started taking dance classes at the community center. I learned about Zoom calls for parent-teacher conferences and downloaded TikTok so I could understand what the kids were laughing at. Some days were hard. Isaiah had nightmares. Amara asked questions about her parents I didn't know how to answer. I got tired more easily than I used to. The house was always messy, always loud, always full of energy that sometimes wore me out. But we made it work. Mrs. Patterson became like a second grandmother. Mr. Washington tutored the kids 3 times a week and refused to take a dime. Sister Gloria taught me how to use the school's parent app and showed up every time I felt overwhelmed with a casserole and a listening ear. Raymond's money, our money, went to good use. I set up college funds for both children, donated to the church, started a scholarship fund in Raymond's name for nursing students, invested in local Black-owned businesses. The house filled with life again. Not the quiet, peaceful life Raymond and I had shared, but something different, something louder and messier and more chaotic, something beautiful. 6 months after the custody hearing, Darnell showed up at the supervised visitation center on time. He'd lost weight, looked tired but clearer somehow. He played board games with Isaiah and Amara, listened when they talked, didn't make excuses. The social worker pulled me aside afterward. "He's trying, Mrs. Williams, really trying. He's been going to therapy, working 2 jobs to pay you back, taking those parenting classes seriously." "Good," I said. "That's what he should be doing." "Do you think you'll ever forgive him? I mean, really forgive him?" I watched through the window as Darnell hugged his children goodbye. Saw Isaiah hug him back, tentative but real. Saw Amara show him a drawing she'd made. "I already forgave him," I said. "But forgiveness and reconciliation are different things. He broke something that might never fully heal. But for those children's sake, I hope he keeps trying. They deserve a father who shows up. Even if I can't trust him as a son anymore, maybe he can still learn to be a decent dad." That night, I tucked Amara and Isaiah into bed, read them a story, kissed their foreheads. "Grandma," Isaiah said as I turned off the light, "are you going to leave us? Like Mom and Dad did?" I sat back down on his bed. "Baby, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be here for every homework assignment, every school play, every birthday, every scraped knee, every broken heart, every triumph, and every failure. I'm going to be here until you're grown, and maybe even then I'll still be bothering you. That's a promise." "But what if you die? Like Grandpa?" The question hit me in the chest, but I answered honestly. "Then I'll die knowing I spent my last years loving you the best way I knew how. And I'll have taught you how to be strong, how to be kind, and how to stand up for yourself. So even if I'm gone, you'll never really be alone." He thought about that. Then, "Okay, I love you, Grandma." "I love you too, baby." I went downstairs, made myself a cup of tea, and sat in Raymond's chair, the one I'd bought to replace the one Darnell had donated. Looked around at this house that had been empty and was now full again. Raymond had been right. I was stronger than I knew. But I hadn't done this alone. I'd had help from people who loved me, people who showed up, people who understood that family isn't just blood. It's showing up, caring, fighting for each other. My son had tried to break me, had bet that grief would make me weak. Instead, grief had made me realize what really mattered, had shown me who really loved me, had given me the clarity to fight for these children who needed me. I wasn't just surviving. I was living. Building a new life from the ashes of the old one. And you know what? It was going to be okay. We were going to be okay. Better than okay. We were going to be a family. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.